Thank you. Go ahead.
Scott Burnet began birding at the tender age of 4 and encouraged by his grandparents. He's been a lifelong Audubon member and has been an executive board member and habitat chairman for Lehigh Valley Audubon Society since 2011. At the age of 14, he began establishing eastern bluebird and wood duck nest box trails and has now installed and continues, to monitor thousands of nesting structures for 20 plus species with the help of volunteers. He built his first Chimney Swift tower in 2010 and has gone on to build more than 20 towers and has consulted on construction of many more. So we're looking forward to hearing what Scott can tell us about Chimney Swifts, because we're planning to implement some kind of Chimney Swift program here in the Erie area. Scott, here, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I have a slideshow put together. A lot of these slides you may have already seen on the internet. Good photographs of Chimney Swifts are hard to come by. As you know, they're very fast flyers, and half the time they're hidden in chimneys. So they're really tough to photograph. So a lot of these photographs I've taken from the internet, but I have some there also of construction that we've done of Chimney Swift towers, part of the conservation aspect that I'm going to delve into tonight a little bit. I'll briefly touch on anatomy and biology and things like that of this species. But it might do you all better than listening to a bunch of information that I will tell you that you might not be interested in. Rather, give me questions or put in the chat questions for the end, and then I can make sure I cover exactly what you guys want to know about these birds, if I can help you with that. So I'm going to start a slideshow here. A lot of it I'm just going to whiz right through because it doesn't have much to do with conservation, but there's a little bit on biology and anatomy. So we'll go through that. So I'm going to share my screen here with you guys. I think I am.
That looks good, Scott.
Can you see the slideshow? Because I can't.
Yeah, right now I'm seeing it looks like a thrush in a wooded area.
No, that's my screensaver. Let me, sorry about this, guys. Did all this earlier. Maybe we won't show pictures.
It worked before.
I know it did. For some reason, it closed down my slideshow. There it is. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So this is just a funny picture I found on the internet. Someone put this on the web and labeled it as Chimney Swifts. And obviously these are European starlings. So a lot of people aren't really familiar with this species or even what they look like. And if you know anything about Chimney Swifts, you know that they cannot perch on flat surfaces like this. So that would be a dead giveaway that these are not Chimney Swifts. And obviously these are European starlings. So that's my title page. That's your big laugh for tonight. All right. This is a friend of mine, George Armistead, took this picture. This is like a classic picture on the internet that a lot of people use for Chimney Swifts. This is kind of an unusual picture because you don't really see these birds perched out in the open very frequently. The only time you usually see these birds like this is after a storm during migration, where they've been forced to land due to rain or high winds during their migration, and then they just cling until the storm passes. And that's, I believe, where George got this photograph from. Just a few points here on the bird's anatomy. Up here, you can see the bill on this bird. It looks very tiny. It looks to be just a short little bill here, but the bill actually extends back almost to the eye here. So when that bird opens its mouth, it has a huge gape, and that's how these birds catch their food. They fly around on the wing with that big mouth open, and they have very, very good vision. They catch insects on the wing, flying insects, even as tiny as like mosquitoes and even smaller like midges. So this big, huge bill is an adaptation, like a catcher's mitt, as they fly through the air, catching these aerial insects. Here you'll notice a big, heavy eyebrow ridge on the bird that acts like a sun visor, kind of to keep the glare out of the bird's eye as it's zeroing in on its prey. This dark area here is kind of like you see a football player that wears the charcoal on his cheeks, keeps the glare down also. You'll notice the long swept wing of this bird. These primary feathers are super long and curved, and that's how it does all the aerial tricks that it can do and flies at super high speed. I believe swifts have been clocked at up to like 80 miles an hour. You always hear that peregrine falcons are the fastest bird in the air, but that's only during a dive. The fastest bird in level flight is a swift. They could far outpace a peregrine falcon in level flight. The other things that I want to show you here, which I have some more close-ups of later on, the tail feathers, soon after they molt the sheaths off the tail feathers, the outer barbs wear away and just leave the center spine here of the feather, and that acts like a little prop as the birds hang vertically on a vertical surface where they perch, just like a woodpecker has, same kind of feather design. And last but not least, I'll show you here is the foot. This is probably the biggest adaptation the swift has that makes it unique from other species or types of birds, in that the foot, the toe arrangement of their feet is really unique. Most birds are what they call anisodactyl, which means they have 3 toes in front, 1 behind, which makes them able to perch on twigs or, any kind of a thin blade of grass or whatever the bird, uses as its normal perch. Swifts can't do that. Swifts can't open their toes far enough to cling to a perch like that. They have what's called pamprodactyl toe arrangement, which most of the time it's in the shape of that of an owl or a woodpecker, with 2 toes in front and 2 toes in back. But if the bird needs to or wants to, it can swivel those 2 rear toes upward, as in this picture here, to more of a sidewards direction, which braces it a little bit more when it's not climbing and just perching. So it has a kind of a unique foot structure. That's one of the things that's almost unique to swifts. I can't think of another group of birds that has pamprodactyl toe arrangement. All right, so little facts about chimney swifts. A lot of you guys know this stuff already. They're about 5 inches long. They have about an 11-inch wingspan. They weigh about an ounce. Flying insects are their diet. The chimney swift is found east of the Rockies through the US and Canada. They migrate to South America, northwestern South America in winter. They glue their nests to the side of these vertical structures, these chambers that they nest and roost in, using their saliva. Like you've heard of bird nest soup. Same type of thing with these guys. They glue little twigs together with their saliva and form their little half cup nests. I will show you pictures of the nest and eggs and all that stuff, and tell you some very interesting facts about their nest building. And here you see status. Lack of suitable chimneys for nesting may be contributing to their decline. No maybe about it. This definitely affects the population of swifts. Without suitable roosting and nesting chimneys, these birds can't really survive. And that's one of the reasons that we get into this conservation aspect of providing these artificial chimneys, these man-made chimneys, to provide alternate roosting and nesting sites where the original historical hollow trees that they nested and roosted in have been cut down, and modern chimneys that they've adapted to are all being capped or lined with stainless steel flues, and these are useless to the birds. So we provide a man-made chimney that's specifically designed for the birds, for nesting and roosting. And, maybe at some point we'll have enough of these structures built that we can really make a difference in the sustainable population of swifts. We're trying. The more we get built, the better off these birds are. Right, here's the range of the chimney swift. The red area is the summer range, the nesting area. In red, you'll see Pennsylvania here is right kind of in the middle of the eastern portion of the nesting range. Yellow area here is migration, where it does not either nest or spend the winter. And then the blue area here in northwestern South America is their winter range. Interestingly, ornithologists didn't know where these birds wintered up until a few decades ago. Some guys were down in Ecuador, I believe, and they were doing studies of other species down there, and they met up with a hunter in the woods or the jungle there, and he had a necklace on made of all of bird bands. And so this made the ornithologists curious, and they asked could they see and get the band numbers off. And it turned out that all these bands were from chimney swifts, banded chimney swifts, and the hunter had been shooting them as food for his family. So that's how they started to figure out where these birds spent the winter. Until that happened, we didn't really know where they spent the winter. But now we do. We have a good idea from banding studies where they go in the winter. Okay, this is typical of how we see chimney swifts in flight. Again, the sickle-shaped wing, the cigar-shaped body. Roger Torrey Peterson called them the flying cigar. I don't really like that name because I don't like cigars, but to each his own. This is what gives them that aerodynamic capability, these long sickle-shaped wings, short pointed body. You'll often see them flying in small groups like this. They hunt in small groups. They communicate via a very unique twittering call that you'll hear them uttering during flight. They keep in good contact with one another, so they know where each other are, especially when they're going to roost at night. There's a more close-up view of the bird. Again, light on the bottom, dark on the top, typical camouflage. A predator from below sees the light underside against the light sky, kind of provides some camouflage. A predator above, like a hawk, sees the dark back against the dark ground, provides some camouflage. Again, you'll see the little spiky tail feathers here, and that's what the bird uses to prop itself up on these vertical surfaces. This bird, this species, it's either on the wing or hanging vertically on a vertical surface its entire life. It cannot perch on a twig. It cannot sit flat on a surface. So it's either hanging vertically or in flight its entire life. It's pretty unique. A relative of the chimney swift, the common swift in Europe, they attached radio transmitters to some of these birds. They were found to be in the air without landing for 10 months straight. So it's a pretty uniquely adapted, pattern that the birds use to survive in the air. Eating, bathing, drinking, all that's done on the wing. Okay, now what's happened? I'm stuck here. Go. I'm stuck, Mary. Do you know what I'm doing here?
No, I don't know.
I'm just trying to use the right arrow here to scroll through the photos. Worked fine up until now, but now it won't move.
So this is you're not in a PowerPoint presentation.
No, I'm in my photos app in a slideshow here.
Can you mail the slideshow to Mary?
I don't know how to do that. I'm not real savvy on the computer, as I can tell. Oh no.
Try clicking on that slide and then hit your right arrow. See if that makes a difference.
There we go. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I put this slide in there because Swifts are so aerodynamic. Early jet engineers borrowed the shape of the Swift to make these early jet fighters. And you'll notice the swept back wings, the short cigar shaped body, and that gave them great maneuverability and high speed. So these early jets were modeled pretty much after the Swift to make them able to do what they wanted them to do. All right, this is your typical chimney with some Swifts perched in there. Again, they can only hang on vertical surfaces like that. They do use little rough areas like the mortar joints in a brick chimney to help them gain purchase with their claws. Again, historically, these birds all nested and roosted in big old hollow trees. When Europeans arrived, they cut down all the hollow trees, supposedly for safety reasons. They were afraid they were going to fall on their houses or their kids or whatever. So all the big hollow trees came down. The birds had no place to go. And this was right when masonry chimneys were starting to go up for the early settlers. And the birds did the only thing they could, and they adapted to a similar vertical chamber, which was the chimney of either houses or factories or whatever. This is what has kept these birds alive since the Industrial Revolution. They're very rarely found in hollow trees anymore, nesting or roosting in hollow trees, occasionally, but mostly in man-made structures, chimneys. Again, close-up of the face. The reason I put this slide in here, I don't know if you can see right here where my cursor is. Do you see that little dimple in the eye? You see that? That is an area in the lens of the eye called a fovea. It's like, it works like a magnifying glass. Eagles have a similar fovea in their eye, and it's estimated that they can see about 13 times better than a human. So Swifts also have a fovea, which you can deduce that maybe they can see as good as an eagle, but actually they have two foveas. So they might be able to see twice as good as an eagle. And this is what they need to capture their prey at high speed, to be able to make those high speed maneuvers as insects twist and turn in the air to be able to catch them. They have super good eyesight. Here's just a close up kind of this is a bird that was caught and banded. I just wanted to show you the claws here, close up of kind of the claws, long, real sharp claws for clinging to those vertical surfaces. And the claws don't extend forward. They're pretty much locked in that position. So that's why they can only cling on vertical surfaces, cannot perch flat or on a twig or anything like that. Again, the spiky tail feathers. A bird that's commonly confused for a chimney swift is the tree swallow or other swallows. Same basic body shape, wing style, but a chimney swift would fly circles around this guy. Here's a bunch of swifts in a chimney during migration. This is atypical. I don't think you'd find swifts piled on top of each other like this. This is an unusual situation. Normally, they're very neatly arranged in the on the sides of the chimney in almost a shingling type of a formation where one bird covers the bird below it, and so on, so that any rain or anything that comes down the chimney as they're roosting just kind of runs off the whole group, and the birds kind of stay dry like that. Also, an interesting thing about them while they're roosting, they go into like a torpor, almost like a hummingbird, and they don't excrete waste while they're roosting. So the birds on top don't foul the birds down below. This is typical in the evenings as the birds go to roost. Pretty common in these big old masonry chimneys found in schools, factories, places like that, churches. And a lot of these are getting torn down. So the birds are losing their homes, which makes it doubly important for us to provide, adequate alternate shelters for them to nest and roost in. Again, the inside of a large industrial smokestack. Here you can see how the birds kind of shingle in place on the wall. A chimney, a smokestack like this could hold thousands and thousands of swifts. I believe the biggest roost in Pennsylvania is at Reading High School near here where I live. And it's estimated there's a minimum of 14,000 birds that roost in there every night. So it's a big roost. Again, this is that same smokestack on a different night when more birds are roosting in there. As birds migrate through an area, it's different birds every night that use the chimneys. So the birds you see on a Tuesday night entering that chimney or smokestack will be different birds than you'll see later in the week. They just keep moving south from chimney to chimney to chimney. And this is ingrained in their DNA. They remember where these chimneys are from generation to generation. And if a chimney goes missing, gets torn down along their migration route, it really has an effect on their population. Could even wipe out a whole generation of swifts if a big roost goes missing along their migration route. This is more typical of like a household or residential type chimney made of terracotta. Here in the left side in the middle here, you can see a nest with 4 eggs. I'll show you better close-ups of the nest. Again, built with all these sticks glued together by saliva. Average 4 eggs, anywhere from 2 to 7. Again, another shot of swifts roosting in a large smokestack. This is a big square chimney at an incinerator at a school somewhere out west, Midwest. Same thing. Thousands of birds will use these same chimneys year after year after year. I think this is a video. Yeah. But I'm not going to show the whole video. Again, a video. This is one I took. But I mean, you've all seen the birds go into a chimney in the evening. This is a picture of a 1740s era log cabin near my house. It's in a city park. And this cabin has nesting chimney swifts in it every spring. This is almost a 300-year-old chimney. So imagine how many swifts, how many generations of swifts have used this same chimney. Now, if this were to get capped, that'd be it for this roosting and nesting site. No more access for the swifts. So again, providing alternate housing for the swifts is critical to keep the population numbers up. Here's one of the problems, that's constantly being seen. Modern building practices are that we cap chimneys off to keep rain out, to keep animals out, to keep sparks from flying out, et cetera, et cetera. This does not allow the swifts to enter if it's a completely enclosed cap. This one, I believe swifts could enter. This is about 10 or 12 inches off the top of the actual chimney, a big stone slab. And I think swifts could probably get in something like this, but you'll see other ones here that I show that are completely enclosed that they can't get in. Something like this that has the wire mesh all the way around it. That keeps everything out, animals, birds, you name it. Again, the stainless steel flues that they're using now, the birds can't perch on that. They can get no grip with their claws. Even if there wasn't a cap on the top, birds couldn't use something like that. And a lot of building codes now require these stainless steel flues in residential chimneys. Again, another type of chimney cap, often called a spark arrestor, because it keeps material from floating up and out of the chimney that might ignite a nearby, source on fire. So they try and control the amount of material that floats out of the top of the chimney. Here's what, I hate to see, but it happens frequently because these old industrial chimneys are nearing the end of their lifetime. These things have been up for 100 years or, at least maybe 70 or 80 years. And they're at the end of their lifespan. I mean, they only last so long before they start to crumble, the mortar dissolves, et cetera. So eventually they have to come down, and unfortunately they don't replace them. They have other means of, getting rid of their combustible gases and stuff like that now. So these old chimneys, these old smokestacks are all coming down, and it really affects the birds population. This is probably the number one cause of decline of the swifts, is the lack of loss of habitat, the tearing down of these smokestacks, chimneys, capping of chimneys, etc. The other big one is the use of insecticides. Really has an effect on their diet. Historically, these birds ate mostly beetles. Now their diet has shifted to all kinds of other things, and they're not eating the same foods that they ate, and populations are suffering because of it. There's a funny picture, I thought. This is a company here that's bringing down a big smokestack. And I love this little girl here. This is like the company that's bringing down the smokestack. She's running because they don't know which way it's going. It looks like it's going to fall right on the wires. So I thought that was interesting. Here's I can't remember this lady's name, and it escapes me right now. I should know it. This lady, I believe she's in Ohio. Back in like the 1940s, she built this tower in her backyard as an observation tower specifically for chimney swifts. This was the first man-made structure specifically for chimney swifts. And you'll see a picture of the inside of it. It had a staircase that wrapped up around the inside, and it had windows looking into the inner chimney for observation. And this woman here, I believe this is her right here, she kept like 200,000 pages of notes during her lifetime on the chimney, the swifts that visited this chimney. So she was a real pioneer in swift conservation. Here's the inside of her chimney. This just shows the staircase that winds up around to the top. And this structure still stands. It was moved, but it's still standing. Here's one of the windows on the inside that you could see into the actual inner part of the chimney. For anybody that's interested in swift conservation and maybe building towers on your own, which you can do it. I mean, it's not the easiest project in the world, but it's certainly doable. I've had Eagle Scouts build them. You want to get this book by Paul and Georgine Kyle, Chimney Swift Towers. It's all about the construction of how to build several different types of towers, from wood to masonry, all different styles, plans, the whole 9 yards. This is available at chimneyswifts.org. It's a paperback. I think they sell it for like $14 or $15, and you definitely want to purchase this book if you're going to get into building chimney swift towers. This is what I got started with back in 2010, and it really got me going. I've since modified their designs for stuff that works a little better for me, but the basic idea I got, from this book. This is like the Bible on chimney swift towers. All right, here I am putting up a tower at one of the local nature centers. This particular tower I built with a group of inner city kids. They started an environmental club, and they wanted to build a chimney swift tower. So we put one up, and it has chimney swifts using it. There's another type of tower that I'm working on. This is a friend of mine. We're putting this tower. This one has an information kiosk around the outside. This is one in a public park near my house. Sometimes we build these information kiosks around them in areas where park goers would have access to the actual chimney, and people could like beat on the sides of the tower and disturb the swifts. So we build this information kiosk around them to display information about the swifts, as well as keep people from actually being able to touch the towers. Here it is finished with the information kiosk around it. This is a little more advanced than the basic tower. The basic tower would just be that center structure there that I'm working at the top of. It's just a basic chimney shape. The information kiosk is an option. Here's a picture of inside of one of my towers. This is a female chimney swift. Again, you can see how she here has rotated this one toe up to the side to help her grasp a little better on the wood, the surface of the wood here. But here the other toes, or the one toe is kind of rotated underneath the other one. It kind of shows you how they can manipulate the toes for best perching for wherever they're going to be roosting or nesting. All of our towers that we make are made out of T111 plywood on the inside that has grooves cut in it, horizontal grooves that gives the birds a place to hang on to and perch more easily, as well as a place to attach their nests. Here's a nest in one of my towers. This is looking up from the bottom. Again, you can see the grooves in the T111 here. The little stick nest, it's a half cup. I'll show it to you from the top. This has been studied by ornithologists. The average nest is made up of 265 twigs, and these birds can't land to pick up a twig. So they fly along the edge of a branch and nip at the tip of the branch until it breaks off. They might have to nip it, 100 times till it breaks. Then they circle back, catch it in midair, and fly into the chimney with it and hold it with 1 foot while they cement it in place. pretty amazing thing that they can do here to build their nests. Here's a nest in one of the towers that I built. You can see at the top here, this brown colored material, that's the saliva that holds the nest to the wall of the chimney. Again, 4 eggs is average, anywhere from 2 to 7. They're real elongated eggs, so they don't roll out of the nest as easy as like a round egg would. Again, these are like maybe 3 inches wide. They're really tiny. There's another nest in that stone chimney I showed you at the log cabin. This one is made of a different kind of twigs, and the birds use whatever types of trees or pine needles or whatever is available to them in the area. Again, you can see how long and elliptical these eggs are shaped. Here's some several-day-old chicks in one of the nests. One of the nests that I monitor. Born blind and naked. They are oh, can't think of the word now. Not precocial. They are altricial birds. They're born blind and naked. The parents have to take care of them throughout the nestling period. Here's some older ones in one of my nests. These are probably 10 days old. They spend about 3 weeks in the nest before they are able to fly and head out on their own. Here's that same nest with some fledglings that are just about ready to leave the nest. Eventually they'll get too heavy for the nest, and if they don't move onto the wall outside of the nest will come down, and then we have a disaster. People often find these chicks and nests laying in the bottom of their fireplace. They can be rehabbed from that age, from just real tiny, but they're really difficult. I've raised a few clutches and they're really difficult to raise. Again, typical view at dusk. People often think these are bats. It's pretty easy to tell which are bats and which aren't, because bats come out of the chimneys at night at dusk, and the swifts go into the chimneys at dusk. So when someone says, "Oh, look at those bats," you can say, "Nope, those are swifts." This is a local chimney here on the right. This was an old Masonic temple that they were tearing down, and it had this huge brick chimney that had a huge colony of swifts living in it. And we approached the landowner, the developer, and said, "Hey, any chance you can, do something to either provide another chimney for these birds or save the existing chimney?" And he got right on board. He spent like $50,000 of his own money to save this chimney. And now it's a freestanding chimney next to the new building that he built, which is really unusual for a developer to get on board like that with a conservation project like this. Again, here's that chimney. While it's still attached to some of the structure that's coming down. More of that. Again, here's the view of a typical chimney looking up from the bottom. This is actually that chimney, that big brick chimney at the Masonic temple. I don't know how this got in there. That's our GoFundMe for the Swift project. Now I'm stuck again. Uh-oh. Can't be. I know there's more in here. Oh, forgive me here. I'm not real computer savvy with this stuff. I have some more pictures of how we build these towers. And in case I can't figure out how to get this slideshow going, it's all in that book that's available at chimneyswifts.org. I don't know, Mary, what do you suggest here? I didn't even know this was in there. This was linked in there. Try going backwards.
I have no suggestions.
Yeah, I don't, this never happened before. This
Well-
the GoFundMe page here was not in the slideshow. I don't know how that got inserted in there, and it won't
Yeah.
go any further than that.
I don't have the same kind of computer you do, and I
Yeah.
don't have that kind of,
Yeah.
you know, photo.
Um,
If
I don't know-
anybody
I
else
don't
can
know what-
offer,
I don't know what to say.
It looks like you have a slider bar there on the right, that little white tiny rectangle. Keep moving your mouse over to the right and then go down. You went past it, but see, there's an arrow that's showing.
I don't see that.
Okay, it's to
It's
the
up.
right. Go towards the people's pictures.
Okay, I'm all the way at the right edge of the screen.
Okay,
it
now,
just disappeared.
What disappeared?
The arrow.
Yeah, I'm off the edge of the screen now with the arrow.
can you make your image smaller?
There the arrow came back.
No,
If the arrow comes back, it was at about 3 o'clock.
I don't see the slider. I'm sorry, folks. I should have run through this to make sure it worked properly ahead of time. Well, if I can't get this going here, we can pick this up another night if you want to, Mary and Sue. And I can get this sorted out.
This is Carolyn with a question.
Okay,
If the presenter would kind of move the cursor around on that right side of the picture, where maybe that arrow would reappear and then the arrow would allow you to go forward. Once again, kind of 3 o'clock or something. We saw it appear at one point, and
the
sometimes
slider bar.
I don't see a slider bar on
No,
my.
I don't either.
But I did see a little square with a white arrow.
Yeah, we saw the arrow.
Yeah, I
So-
can see the arrow and the slider bar.
You can?
Right,
I can't.
go straight across to the right. Now go down just a little bit. Now,
I'm at the edge of my screen here.
I'm not seeing the arrow now, but I have seen it.
right.
There's my cursor. Let me try and minimize this. Let me go back.
Love your green beans.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. No, I'm sorry, folks.
No, just,
I'm showing you what a unsavvy technology person I am.
Well, something happened. You went in a reverse direction and
Yeah,
saw.
I can go backwards, but I can't go past this slide here. And this isn't even really a slide. This is a screenshot from our GoFundMe page for
Well,
the
delete
script.
it. Delete it.
Delete that.
Yeah, see what happens. Just a thought.
It won't delete.
Is it just a photo?
No, this is a page off the internet.
It looks like this is that
Now that went away. Apparently that deleted, but it won't go past this slide now.
I see that in the top it says 48 of 48, so it looks like this is the last.
That
Photo.
can't be right, though. I'm
It does
sorry.
say 48 of 48.
Yeah, if it says 48 of 48, something happened here.
Okay.
Let's revisit. Can we do that? Can I come back another evening and we do it again?
Well,
Ask you questions?
Oh, yeah. you
why
can-
why don't we just go to the questions
Okay,
and call it a night?
okay. That's fine.
And really, folks, if you truly have other questions, you know, we can always like send them to Scott and get back to them. But
Yeah,
yeah, you can turn off your slide presentation and we could do questions. There are quite a few questions, so.
What is an optimum site to put a tower?
Okay, these birds,
Let's make sure that the questions go into the chat so that we can kind of keep them in line.
all right, I
Okay,
got the
but thank you,
chat,
Greta.
I've got the chat open here. But how are we gonna do this? You want me to just handle the questions one at a time? Or do you would just want to do verbal questions?
Mary, you're muted.
You want to do the raise hand thing and the reactions?
Sue and I usually kind of, take the questions from the chat and give them to you verbally
Okay,
so that you don't have to worry about reading the chat.
okay,
And then we can all kind of keep the questions in order.
okay.
I have one question that goes back to your question about them spending a lot of time on the wing. Do they sleep while they fly?
No, well, I shouldn't say no, because a lot of birds that fly long distances in migration do hemispherical sleep, where they sleep half their brain at a time. So I'm not sure whether swifts can do that or not while they're flying. But they do roost nightly if they can. So I would say they probably take advantage of that roosting time to sleep. I've never heard of them sleeping half the brain in flight. That's not to say that doesn't happen.
Okay, and how about nesting and egg laying posture? Since they're vertical perchers, how do they egg lay? And like I would ask, how do they incubate?
Okay. The nest is generally a new nest is built each spring. The same pair will use a chimney each year after year. One, maybe two pairs per chimney. They're territorial when they're nesting.
One or two.
So one pair goes in, lays claim to that tower, and then they defend it, or that chimney or whatever, they defend it. They will construct the nest by clinging to the side of the chamber with one foot, holding the particular twig with the other foot, dabbing their saliva onto it, and then placing it in place with that other foot. So eventually it forms like a little shelf that sticks out from the interior of the chimney.
Amazing.
That they can, it's like a little platform that they can lay on and incubate on. Now,
So they actually do or like might be horizontal while they're incubating.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the cup is not very deep. It's not the full depth of like the width of an egg. The eggs are kind of just laid on a slight depression in that twig structure, and eggs do fall out, and the nests do come loose pretty frequently, especially in an open chimney that has no rim around the top to protect it from rain that washes down the sides of the chimney. That'll sweep the nest right off. A hard rain will sweep the nest, eggs and chicks right off. And like I said, if the chicks grow too big, like say the female lays a 7-egg clutch, those 7 chicks, as they start growing, become too heavy for the nest to support, and they have to either get out of the nest or down it comes. So as they get older, they will move out of the nest and just cling to the side of the structure, and then the female and male will come and feed them on the wall.
Is it primarily the female that incubates?
No, they share incubation.
That's
Share incubation.
interesting.
the one parent will incubate, the other parent will go out and feed, and then the opposite. They take turns incubating. They both feed the chicks, and swifts are one of those species that will have other unrelated birds feeding chicks, helping parents that are having trouble raising chicks. They will allow other parents to come in and feed their chicks in times of need. So they do have kind of a social nesting hierarchy like that, where they'll help each other.
Okay.
Especially like if one parent is lost, one parent is killed or dies, then the other parent can't provide enough food for all the chicks, and a second pair or a second individual or whatever will come in and pick up to help feeding of the single parent.
Wow. We're a related question. And someone asked this, how many pairs nest in a chimney? And I've always thought it was just one.
It's just one. There have been recorded, like if you go into Cornell's really deep archival information about them, some of the bigger like industrial chimneys and stuff, they've recorded 3, 4, and 5 nests in one chimney, but that's unusual. Like a residential chimney or a smaller chimney, 1 nest per chimney.
And is that the same for the towers?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. The towers, I'll talk a little bit about the towers real quick. The towers that I build are on 4 legs that are set into a 1 cubic yard concrete foundation. The legs are 4x4s, pressure treated 4x4s. And then there are 4 4-foot boxes stacked on top of each other that attach to those legs. So the internal chamber, the nesting chamber, the roosting chamber is 16 feet tall, and it's 2 feet off the ground. That allows access to the bottom panel, which is how we check on the nests. We open them up for cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. There's a removable bottom panel that's 2 feet off the ground. Then 16 feet of the chamber on top of those legs, and then a 1 foot, what we call a sun collar, at the very top of the chimney or the tower that sits on an overhang, an internal overhang around the lip of the chimney, which does 2 things. It prevents sunlight from streaming directly down into the chimney so much, and also keeps rain from running right down the sides of the chimney. So what we do is we take a square panel and we cut out a hole 15 inches square in the center, and that's where our sun collar goes. And then the outer dimensions of the chimney are 24 by 24. So there's like a 3-inch overhang on each side on the inner edge to keep rain from washing down in there. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. You'd probably get a better feel for it with a picture or from the book. But yeah, you don't want your top of the chimney just wide open, or the rain and snow will get in there and clean everything off.
Okay. Here's a question. There are chimney swifts every summer in the small town where I live, and I don't know what small town that is or where it is, but it might be in Pennsylvania. But I don't know what chimneys they use. How and when should I survey the town to find out which chimneys are being used?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've just started to come up with a good system for that. And we've started a registry for Pennsylvania of all the roosts that we can find that are what we consider large roosts, which would be 100 birds or more roosting in them at a time. This is not nesting, this is roosting during fall migration. We have the registry, and you can contact me. I'll get you that information, how to open the registry and add information to it. But we have teams that go out and just drive around neighborhoods, watching the birds in the air. And then right around dusk, we will take note of where they're congregating and hopefully try and find the chimneys that they're using for roosting. Those would be the same chimneys they'd use in the spring for nesting. So it's basically a hit or miss kind of thing. You just kind of, you find where swifts are hunting and using the airspace, and then just spend some time watching them at dusk to see where they go.
Okay. There's so many questions here. I'm trying to aggregate them. And people have asked, do they ever share the same chimney? You've already answered that. Someone asked, and we'll get this, how do they do when there's a fire in the fireplace?
All right. Here's the thing with fires in the fireplace. We burn fires in our fireplaces in the cold months of the year, right? The birds aren't around in the cold months. They're down in South America. So there's not too much crossing over of the birds being in the chimneys when there's fires being used or being built. Most of the time the birds are here is from April till October, and fires usually don't, you don't start heating your house or running fires till maybe, November, December, whatever. So the swifts are pretty much gone in fire season.
Well, yes. And someone did ask, what months does migration occur? I checked the Erie County checklist, and they started arriving sometime in April.
Yeah.
Mostly late April.
Yep.
And leave early October to late October. So if the person who asked that is from Erie, that's the typical. Scott was about right for his area and our area.
It's probably pretty similar for our two areas. Yeah, we're near the same latitude, so I would think that migration periods would be pretty similar.
Well, Erie tends to be a little behind other places in Pennsylvania, especially the north, the southeast, because we have a longer winter.
Yeah.
But several questions of people have asked, what is optimal conditions for locating a tower, a chimney swift tower?
Since all of the natural cavities, these hollow trees and stuff have pretty much disappeared, and swifts have adapted more to man-made structures, most of the swift nesting and roosting activity takes place in town, in cities, in towns now, which is where we find the vast majority of our big roosts. So, I mean, I have towers built out in the country that do get swifts, but nowhere near with the frequency that towers that I put in town attract swifts.
Okay.
They're an urban bird now.
No, I just want to say something here. Maybe that's why, because I know the Audubon Society of Western Pennsylvania, they got a large amount of money with a grant to build towers, and they put them all in the county parks. And from what I understand, a lot of them aren't being used at all.
Right. My first several that I built were in the city parks here in Allentown. I live right across the street from one of the biggest parks. And so I started there in that park, and we had success almost immediately once I adapted the design to work at our latitude. And what I mean by that is the people that wrote this book on chimney swift or tower construction, they're based in Texas. So the angle of the sun there is much different in the summertime than it is for us. So they put these real tiny sun collars on the top to keep this direct rays of the sun from beating down on the inside on the nests and so forth. I made our sun collars much bigger because the sun is not at a steep angle shining right down into the chimneys like it is would be in Texas. So I put a bigger collar on the top of the chimneys, and I made the overall dimensions bigger. And immediately I had way better success than with a smaller tower that had a smaller collar on it.
See that?
Okay, a quick question. How far down from the top of the chimney is the nest built?
Good question. I find that almost every nest that I come across in one of my towers is built right at the point where the light and shadows mix. Right? You'll have the upper part of the chimney will be more illuminated than the lower part. And right kind of where the shadows and the light are kind of, joining each other at the center of the chimney, that's where the nests usually are, at that level, almost always.
How far down is that?
Well, in a 16-foot chimney, a 16-foot chamber like I build, that's about 8 foot down from the top or up from the bottom.
Okay.
I wonder if
Yeah.
they have a preference for this.
They don't like
I
it
wonder
real
if they have
bright.
a preference on that.
They
Yeah.
don't like it real bright in there, but they don't want to be too far down in the chimney, it seems, either.
Is there a preference for
I
north?
think
and
part of
south,
that, part of the
west?
reason for that is they don't want to be too deep down in there. So it's a little bit easier for the chicks to fledge. They're closer to the top, but yet they don't want the nest so close to the top that it's getting shined on by the sun and overheated.
Is there a north, south, east, west preference?
No, I put my sun collar right in the center. Now down south in the Kyle's book, they say put the sun collar to the northern side of the chimney. I tried doing that in the first couple I built and I had no luck. And then I put the bigger collars in the center, right in the center of the chimney, and the birds took to it right away. So I think it's just a difference in latitude between us and, where the book is written.
Scott, do they have a preference for which wall they nest on?
No, I haven't found it. No.
Okay, I'm trying really hard to look at all these questions.
I mean, I'll spend as much time as we need to go through these questions. I
Someone
wanna
asked,
help
does
everybody.
T111 not have formaldehyde?
What's that?
Does T111 not have formaldehyde?
Honestly, I don't know, but we've used it for, the Kyles have been using it for, since the 70s, building these towers, and I've never heard of any detrimental effects from using T111. So if it does have formaldehyde, it either doesn't affect the animals, or it's not in a concentration high enough that it would.
Here's a question. Has anyone ever tried to use brick veneer stone on the inside of a man-made tower rather than
Yes.
plywood?
Yes, the Kyle's book has instructions for masonry towers made of either brick or concrete block. I have never built one of those simply because I'm not a mason. I'm more of a carpenter. We are trying to get the money together. They're quite a bit more expensive to build as well. We're trying to put some money together this year to build some masonry towers. I'm sure they would work just as good, if not better, than the wooden ones, because that's what the birds are really used to, especially brick, especially
Yeah.
brick.
In a related question, could a tower be attached to another structure instead of being freestanding?
Absolutely. The first one I ever built, I attached to the side of my garage, which made it a lot easier because I didn't have to put legs on it, no foundation. All that stuff was eliminated. I just through bolted it right through the walls of my garage.
And for those of you who are not as close to Presque Isle Audubon as we are talking about putting Chimney Swift towers on a refurbished downtown industrial project, because Chimney Swifts are known to have nested there, and we actually got agreement from the redevelopment authority to put them up there, and Scott, we would be putting them on the top of a refurbished older building to replace several masonry chimneys.
Mhm.
So my question is, how far apart, I mean, how far apart can they be, or should they be? I mean, can you have more in one area collectively?
I honestly don't have a scientific answer for that, but I have some that are within 100 feet of another and they're both being used. So I'm going to assume that proximity isn't really an issue as long as each pair has its own chamber to nest in.
100 feet.
I have some about 100 feet apart. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
At the
we'll
closest.
talk more. We'll talk more about that at some other time.
Sure. Sure.
Sue, do you have any other?
Yes.
I'm
Someone
seeing.
wants to know how many towers you have built. Do you keep track, Scott?
I don't really keep track anymore. I built over 20. I know that. I've consulted on, gosh, a lot more than that. Because I'm getting to the point where my body doesn't want to do these things anymore. So I tell other people how to build them. I go there, I show them what to do. And we have New Jersey Audubon has put a few up, several other Audubon chapters in Southeast Pennsylvania. So I've probably been involved in 50 maybe total. I know Western PA Audubon has a lot more than that. They build theirs a little differently than I do. And I would suggest you talk to them also before you go ahead and decide what you want to do at Erie.
Yeah. Can I know that this is a really broad and open-ended question. Can someone, I mean, I know you put one on your place, but can someone put them in their backyard?
Yes, absolutely. You can't go too close to another structure. However, the birds would prefer it if the top of this man-made structure, this artificial chimney, was several feet above any existing roof line. So like my garage has a flat roof on it. So when I attach the chambers to the side of the garage, I put enough boxes on top of each other that the top of the chimney was about 4 feet above the roof line of the chimney. And that worked. And you don't want to put them in an area with a lot of trees, which will block ingress and egress for the birds. You want to have it in an open area. Because, when they come in to roost at night, they do that big vortex, the swirling vortex, and they need some room to do that.
Someone
Well, that's just for roosting,
That's
though.
just for roosting, right?
As opposed
for
to
nesting. For nesting, they'll dive right down in that chimney. I know of some chimneys that are within 10 feet of a tree, and they still use it for nesting, but not for roosting. They don't have that room to spiral when trees are that close. But for nesting, yes.
How much does a tower cost?
The wooden ones like I built, now, again, I've enlarged mine and made them a little bit different than what's suggested in the book. If you follow what's in the book, a tower, probably you could put one up for about $600, maybe $500-600. The ones
Is that including current lumber prices?
Well, I haven't built one since the COVID.
Lumber is really expensive now.
I would probably say it might be double that now.
Oh.
The ones that I built, were around $1,200, but I used really high grade siding. I used like all cedar trims because these went in public areas and I wanted them to look nice. You know, if you're not really worried about the trim, how the trim looks or whatever, like you say, you're going to put them on the roof of a building. You don't need the fanciest siding. You don't need the fanciest trim work. You can save a little money by, you know, not using that kind of stuff on it.
Sue, we need to order that book.
Yeah, you definitely want to get that book before you even start, because that'll give you, you know, the backbone of what you need to know to do this the right way. These people have, you know, 40, 50 years of experience doing it. They're the godfathers and godmother of Chimney Swift towers for sure.
I think I found some instructions online, maybe an Audubon group in North Carolina.
Yeah, there's quite a few instructional things on the internet about building them. There's even a few tutorial videos that kind of show you step by step how they go through it. I've never watched a complete one of those, but I would imagine they'd be super helpful. You know, if you have any questions, I'm sure that would probably answer most of what you need to get one built. And I'm always available with questions, or maybe I can even come out to Erie one time. And
We would love to have you.
I know, yeah, I'd love to come out. Sounds like a perfect area for them.
Well, we have indications that they have been frequenting this area, and we want to make sure that they can continue to nest there because this building is getting renovated. Part of it's getting torn down, part of it's getting saved, but it looks like there's like 4 or 6 chimneys, little chimneys on the top. And we know that chimney swifts are in that area because several of us have, you know, drive by there all the time and we can hear them. And we've had reports of people seeing them there. So and no other industrial area near there seems to have chimneys. So that must be the spot.
It's a hot spot then.
Yeah. And so we want to make sure that whatever renovations occur happens, you know, we can actually accommodate the swifts.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So it sounds like the ideal situation for some conservation of the species. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a few local
I would highly suggest doing something there.
Well, we've already got the go ahead and thumbs up from the executive director of the redevelopment authority. And so as the plan progresses, we're hopefully going to be able to make recommendations. That's why I wanted to know how many towers you think we could put up there. And I know you don't know the space, but I just think that, you know, if we could put up more than one, that would be really
Absolutely. I think,
yeah.
you know, if the area of the top of the building where you want to put these is, you know, more than 100 feet square, you can definitely put more than one for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about the smokestack by Blasco. Do they use that? And Scott, you won't know about this, but down by the Bayfront Parkway, there's an old power plant tower that still stands. And someone asked if they're used by chimney swifts. I personally have no knowledge that they've been used by chimney swifts. I know that they are used regularly by the local peregrine falcons as a perch. But I've never seen specifically chimney swifts in that area. That doesn't mean that they don't use them in migration, but we've just never gone to see them.
I think I've actually driven by that structure. when
It's
I
on the
was-
bayfront near the,
Yeah.
right in downtown.
Yeah, I think I've driven by that, and I remember saying to myself, wow, looks like it would be a great spot for chimney swifts. If it's the same
Yeah.
place I'm thinking of, there's no reason they shouldn't use it. I wouldn't think, unless, we have some big old factory chimneys here, like at Bethlehem Steel and places like that look like they'd be great for swifts, but they're capped. For whatever reason, these companies put big metal plates on top of these chimneys or these smokestacks, and keeps the birds out. So
Well, I don't know.
that would be
if
the
it's
only
capped
thing I
or
would think.
not.
Wouldn't have
I don't
them.
even know how to figure out how to find out if it's capped
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah, it's most of the time I found out by asking the owners, what's the deal with your smokestack or your chimney? Is it capped? And they'll say, oh yeah, we put a metal plate on that back in the 80s or whatever,
Okay, well, it's frequented by a peregrine falcon pair. They tend to use it as a courting perch, or a hunting perch. And I don't know. Oh, someone suggested a drone inspection. So we need to find someone who has a drone. Oh,
that's how we inspected this chimney we saved in Allentown.
okay, well,
Bethlehem, actually.
someone,
We actually
Mike-
flew a
Mike
drone
just
all the way
brought it-
down into the chimney.
Mike just brought up an image of it on,
See that.
There you go.
and it's open.
Yeah.
It's open.
Okay, there you go.
Well,
And
next
it
slide.
looks like it's a brick structure. So
Well,
It's
I think
some
it's
block.
more block.
okay, well,
concrete.
even any kind of masonry that has those horizontal joints would lend itself to swifts being in there for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I guess we need to check that out.
Yep.
Okay, someone said
Ask-
they
ask
found chimney
questions.
swift roosting at Teal College. Have any towers been built in Western New York? I don't know if anybody can answer that.
I don't know of any, but I would have to guess that some have, because a lot of the Audubon societies are putting these up, whether it's 1, 2, 10, whatever. It's starting to catch on a little bit. It's a neat conservation project, and it provides, tangible benefit for the birds. So it's starting to get adopted by a lot of conservation groups and or Audubon chapters. So I would say chances are some have been put up in Western New York. I wouldn't know how many or where, but
someone said
Probably.
that the person who built the Chimney Swift Tower in Iowa during the early 20th century was Olathe Sherman.
right, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Sue, do you see any other questions there that I have not?
At the very bottom, there was just a notice that Grove City College has a tower, a Chimney Swift Tower. A couple people would like Scott to share his contact information.
Oh, okay. I guess I can type that right in the comments, right?
Yeah, in the chat.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I'll put in my email address here. And that's probably the best way to get in contact with me.
And while you're doing that, someone said, I live in Austin and are good friends with the Kyles.
Oh, there you go. They
Yeah,
got an
great
in.
couple.
They
Hmm?
got an in. Yeah,
And
they've put up.
I'm
They've put up.
actually impressed that we have somebody from Austin.
Yeah,
our-
they've put up lots of these things. I mean, they have a whole organization that's all they do is chimney swift towers and conservation of chimney swifts. All right, there.
And
is
so,
my-
and someone
there's
did
my
ask.
email
towers
address.
or- Okay,
You can, anybody can email me there if they have questions or
Yeah.
just want to chat about birds or whatever.
you're also on Facebook if people want to.
Yep, I have
Yeah.
I'll type my whole name there so they can,
And someone did ask, towers are more successful in urban as opposed to rural areas, and I think you covered that.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. Now, that's not to say towers put in more rural areas are necessarily unsuccessful. You just have a much better chance of getting the towers quickly adopted by the birds in an urban area than you do in a rural area. I have some in rural areas that still get, used. So it's not a rule that you have to put them in an urban area, but if
Mary,
you
I
would
just
suggest, I would
Facebook,
suggest it.
I just Facebook messaged you, Mary, a picture of the Erie Malleable site. If you want to try to share it, I don't know if you can.
Well, yeah. No, not right now. I've looked at it online, so I know what it looks like.
I just meant so Scott could see it.
Oh, you mean the proposed site?
Yeah.
Okay, no, yeah. That's prior to our conversations. That doesn't show Chimney Swift towers on the top of that building. But we are guaranteed to have at least one.
Mary, send me any information you think that would be pertinent to me helping out with this, okay?
Okay, all right. No, yeah, this is really important to get this site, as far as I'm concerned, to get this site.
It definitely sounds like it's something worth exploring and trying to save this, site for Swifts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like we have Swifts that are in our neighborhood, and I can guess which commercial buildings they're nesting in is, near in the neighborhood. So I know that the Swifts are using that spot as well. So it's definitely worth working on. I'm still trying to go through the questions to make sure. Someone asked in migration, like if they have no chimney that the birds can find to roost in, will they use a tree?
They had, you mean like a hollow tree?
That's the question. Do they roost on a tree chunk if there are no chimneys?
They like during storms, if they can't get to their actual destination chimney or roosting spot, they do occasionally cling to the outside of trees, but they have great losses when that happens. A good portion of the birds could, die because they're not protected in a storm on the outside of a tree. But they do it. They do it.
Well, it
But
sounds
like I said, they have a specific route of chimneys memorized for generations that they've been using in a migration route every season of migration, and they remember where these chimneys are, so they know, like if they're in Erie tonight, roosting in a chimney, maybe they'll spend the day there tomorrow, fattening up, eating some bugs, might spend the next night or even two there, but they're going to move through. They're moving south. They're working their way to South America. So they know where their next chimney's supposed to be. And if they get there and it's not there, they're kind of on their own. And we lose a lot of Swifts because of that. That's one of the reasons that, we try and save as many existing roosts as we can, as well as provide alternate roosts, because the birds look for these historical roost sites on their migration.
Yeah, there's a comment here that it's rare, but chimney swifts are still nesting in hollow bald cypress trees in the Cache River National Wildlife Refuge in Arkansas.
They do it, especially in these these remote areas where there's no man-made chimneys and stuff like that, they do use hollow trees where there are hollow trees of the right size and dimension for them to roost or nest in. But the great majority of them roost in urban areas or nest in urban areas.
There is one more question here. If the birds prefer to nest about 8 inches below the entrance,
Feet,
why do
feet.
8 feet.
8 feet? Why do the towers need to be more than 10 feet?
Because of that difference between light and shadow. There's 2 other species of swifts in the United States, the Vose swift and the black swift. The Vose swift will nest in a much smaller, shorter chimney or chamber than the chimney swift does. I think it's just species preference that over millennia they have adapted to prefer this particular size of chimney, and that's why they go for that. I know the Kyles have experimented extensively with different size, shapes, dimensions, all kinds of different materials, etc. And they've settled on a chamber minimum of 12 feet tall is what they find to be necessary to really make the birds, attracted to the spot.
Do you know how far chimney swifts fly during migration between stops?
I don't per se know the exact answer to that, but I'm going to assume it's several hundred miles between stops. I mean, here's a bird that can fly easily 50 miles an hour during the daylight hours. So do the math, and a chimney swift could easily fly 300-400 miles in a day's time to its next roosting spot.
Okay, this is kind of a different question. Although they nest differently, do they compete with swallows or martin nesting habitat areas? So someone with martin qualities nearby, would that preclude swifts nearby?
No. Martins want a totally different style of chamber, a small, horizontal chamber. The only thing they would compete for is maybe food sources, and I don't even think that would be. We have martin colonies right around the same lakes that we have swift towers, and it doesn't seem to bother anybody.
What are their predators?
Chimney swifts?
Yes.
The predator, I would say the primary, there's not too many avian predators like accipiters or falcons or anything like that, because these birds can pretty much outfly any of those types of raptors. Probably their biggest predators would be mammals that can climb up into the actual roosting nesting sites and prey directly on the animals that way. Yeah, I mean, I've never even heard of one being taken by another bird, predatory bird.
Interesting.
But I know they do get taken by raccoons and things like that, especially on the nest.
Well, apparently,
when we build
Jamie Hills is online. He said that St. Joe's Apartments on West 6th Street, for those of you who know, had a large brick chimney, and they had a fall migratory roost there. And they said they put a video camera on it and counted 1,800 individual swifts. This was about 20 years ago. I don't know the current status. And I personally have not looked there for a fall roost, but I certainly would like to.
I would say that the easiest way to locate nesting sites would be to first look for fall roosting sites, because those birds are going to use the same chambers for nesting as they do for roosting. And when they roost, there might be 300 birds use that roost, whereas only one pair will use it for nesting. So you're going to have to catch by happenstance one pair going in and out of the chimney at nesting time, versus you can go there at dusk and see, you know, the big vortex of hundreds of birds using that chimney at roosting time. So they're much easier to find in fall migration than they are during the spring nesting season. Yeah, if you're looking for potential colony sites, I would definitely concentrate on fall investigation of sites. Yeah.
I think I've gotten all the pertinent questions. Sue, have you seen anything that needs to be
Yeah.
addressed?
There was this, I can't find it. It was from Carolyn wondering about any studies of chimney swifts in this area or
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but I'm not aware of any.
Not specifically, no. My personal interest has led me to kind of keep track of them in my own neighborhood. There was, for those of you in Erie, the Kohler Brewery Tower got brought down a number of years ago, and don't ask me how many years ago, because I live in a time warp now and I don't remember how many years ago it was. But after that, the Kohler Brewery Tower came down, the smokestack, I noticed that chimney swifts were starting to, I started noticing chimney swifts in other places outside of, or in my neighborhood around St. Mary's on the east side and Erie Homes for Children and Adults where I worked on West 26th Street. And we started seeing more chimney swifts in our neighborhood. So, and Lincoln School is about a block away from our house and they have a big chimney too. So I've assumed that there were birds using the Kohler Tower and then they got dispersed because that chimney came down. But in general, I don't think anybody's done any studies. And of course, last summer, I did a little bit of very non-scientific observation at the Erie Malleable Iron site that we've been talking about on 12th and Cherry, which is the building that's getting refurbished. So that is, you know, every day when I drove by there, I heard chimney swifts in the area. So I knew that they were using that particular area. I've since looked at satellite views of that area, and the two industries closest to it don't have appropriate chimneys, but that building does. And so that's why we're making an effort in that area on that building to make that happen.
It sounds like you're doing, you know, your homework and doing it in the right place, you know, concentrating on the right area to put these things.
Yeah, well, you know, the downtown industrial corridor is seen as an eyesore to a lot of people. I see it as our history being demolished. But I also know that the chimney swifts and urban birds use a lot of these places. And so
Yeah.
Sue and I are very happy that we've made contact with the redevelopment authority and
Yeah.
seem to be progressing positively.
That's a great first step. And like I said, you know, it's unusual to get such good cooperation from a developer or a building owner or whatever, you're fortunate that they're willing to let you do something there, or that they will actually do something.
We were actually pretty like surprised and excited.
Yeah. Yeah. That chimney that we got the developer to save in Bethlehem, we were like shocked because we didn't even have to beg. He was like a, animal lover, bird lover. And he actually put a bunch of acreage that he owns into conservatorship, and he was right on it. He said, yeah, these birds, they need a place to go in migration, and we're going to save them. So it was great.
Well, we had a similar reaction to our conversation with the executive director of the Development Authority, because we were like trying to figure out the best way to make this argument, and she was like, well, we should be good stewards.
Yeah.
We were like, whoa.
Yeah, it takes you off guard, right?
Yeah.
You're expecting a hard no, and when they show some interest, you're kind of shocked.
Yeah, we definitely were.
You asked about any studies that were being done. Now, I don't know about any like population studies that were done in our areas, but a few years back, I got contacted by an ornithologist from the Carnegie Museum. He got my name from someone that knew that I was doing stuff with swifts, and he asked me if I would send him samples of the droppings from the bottom of the chimneys to study for insecticide levels. And so we started, harvesting droppings a couple times a year for them to study. And it was pretty interesting to find that, the insecticide levels were through the roof on the stuff that these birds were eating. Wow. And it varied from like spring to fall to whatever. Yeah. Interesting.
That's a whole nother point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I want to let Scott go. If anybody has any questions, unmute yourself and do it, because
yeah, you got me. You might as well take advantage of it.
I have a question, Scott, that
go ahead, Mike.
Something you said about the destruction of chimneys as being their primary source of their decline. Are chimney swifts showing any effects of climate change? Is anything in their behavior affected by that sort of thing?
I'm sure it is, Mike. With the general decline that we're seeing in the numbers of insects, and we can pretty much relate a lot of that to climate change. Their food supply is dwindling, and it's just going to keep getting worse as the planet warms. So I think it's definitely there's a relationship there. I don't know that anyone has studied it specifically in chimney swifts, but it makes sense that it would affect them.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Food and shelter are their two, nesting sites
Right.
and shelter are the big, needs that they have. And those are the things that are being affected by humans. So,
Next door to me, there's this big hollow snag. It's kind of half hollow, so they wouldn't necessarily be using something like that if it was half open, would they?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand.
Well, there's he took a tree down, and it's pretty rotten, and it's kind of sort of half open. It's not, it's not like you could put your hand, like that it's a cylinder. It's more like it's half tree and half open.
Oh, Yeah, if it's not a completely enclosed vertical chamber, I would guess that they would not use something like that. Although I've heard of some really bizarre places where they have nested. One in particular, I remember, someone had an outhouse behind their hunting cabin or something with the little crescent moon cut in the door. And they were entering through the crescent moon and nesting on the inside of the outhouse. So I guess they will adapt if need be.
That sounds like more like a swallow.
Yeah, it's amazing what, you know,
Right.
what birds can do sometimes.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Please keep in contact with me about this.
We actually
you have
will.
my
yes.
you have my contact information. I'm available anytime. You know, and if I can, I'd like to come out to Erie and, you know, maybe have a look at the site or provide any kind of input I can for you guys.
We have a spare bedroom. It's all yours.
Oh, I like it out there, you know.
We do too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for having me, folks. I'm sorry my technology was the second best, but at least people got to ask questions. So
It might have been. a
I'll
good
gladly
thing.
try and put another PowerPoint together for you more properly in the future if you'd like.
No, this was very, very good. We really appreciate it. Thank you. I
No
think we learned a
problem.
lot, and it's probably a good thing your pictures ended sooner, so we had a lot of time to.
Yeah, right. Right.
I told you
Unfortunately-
everybody would have a lot of questions.
Unfortunately, you didn't get to see a lot of the construction of the towers that we put up. But if anybody's really interested in doing that and they get the book, they'll get the gist of it real quick. Yeah.
Very good.
And it's not a project that, you know, has to be done by a carpenter. Like I said, I've had Eagle Scouts build these things, you know, so. All right, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you.
Go Swifts.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Hope to hear from you soon.
We will.
Okay.